Hold on. We are live. Oh, one of our guests has run away, but that's okay. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. And today we are going to be going through a whole bunch of topics today, but we are going to be starting what I like to call Episode Club, where we are going to be going through all 67 episodes of a Game of Thrones over time. Not right now because that would be too much. But we're going to be going over the first episode, Winter is Coming, with my lovely co-host / panel. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves. But the first question that I'm going to ask them is, what got you into Game of Thrones? And whoever wants to start can proceed.
I'll get it out of the way because, as BBM called me, I'm a stream hooker. So I'm going to go ahead and plug myself. I'm Johnny B. Crazy. Check me out Thursday, Nooners of Ice and Fire. Might have a special this weekend, the Geology of Winterfell. But I'll have to get with someone on that, and we'll see about that. But it's Game of Thrones was kind of a blessing for me. I accidentally ran across it in the end of season 2 and was immediately hooked. I binge watched it up until that, and then the Red Wedding threw me off. Started reading the books, read the heck out of them, loved it. I lived under a rock for a while, so this helped bring me out of the rock, and that's pretty much it. It's a fantastic show, and it's gritty and dirty and not too much fantasy. Well, at least not yet. Next.
I guess I found the button. Oh, I found the button to unmute myself. Hopefully I'll find it to mute myself back so I can, or somebody mute me if I go for too long. What do I say? What was the question? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I paid attention. It's really, really early on. Oh, I see that cup. Yeah. It's really early on, so technically I should still be paying attention. My attention span is it's improving. So what got me into this? Well, I love anything fantasy, anything to do with history, anything to do with magic, and apparently people know that I love chaos and I love violence. Well, no, I'm in the movies, not in real life. I'm a very, very nice person.
Narrative confirmed.
Why? Oh, and I'm a host. Apparently, I'm a host. My co-host, Westworld co-host Johnny knows that I'm a host, and I switch between Dolores, Maeve, and Wyatt, and many others are hiding there somewhere. Just kind of not right now. What got me into it? My husband got me into it. He presented me with something that he watched. The first season that came out. He got it from our good friend as a birthday present, and he watched it when he was working. Basically, he was away and he worked, and he just in spare time he watched it, and he said, "Hun, there you go. You're welcome." I'm like, "What? You're welcome for what?" Like, just watch and see, and then you can thank me later. Again, I was under a rock. I was doing that was the intense time when I was in school, family, work. So I had no idea. I said, "You need to relax, baby. There you go. Just take a weekend and watch it." I binge watched the thing. It was intense. I fell in love with it, and I was just like flipping through channels to see, I need more. Why did you give it to me now? I hope there's more, because if there's not more, then you're in trouble, man. But luckily, at that point, couple seasons were already out, and I was really, really late to the game. I watched it, and I binge watched everything. I binge watched all the other stuff that was on there. I think next 2 more seasons. My brain melted. A couple times after that, and I was completely in love with it. And then I was hungry for more, but then like everybody else had to wait for the next season. And I'm stuck on it, and I'm loving it. So, Milt?
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Hey guys, it's Milt from the Citadel trivia, not the Trivial Citadel, I think. But anyway, it seems like I've been pretty busy the last couple of weeks, but figure I hop on to the stream because rewatching Game of Thrones is probably on my to-do list while I'm kind of on sabbatical right now. So how should I start? Well, sort of similar to Elmar. Actually, my wife got me into Game of Thrones. She heard about how popular the show was. Roughly around season 3, she bought the book, but of course, she never read it. She asked me to read it first, and then so I went ahead and read it. I got really big into it, and I read all the books during that summer during the off season, and then basically I got into the show roughly around season 3ish. I think season 3, and then I kind of binge watched seasons 1 and 2 on a trip to Australia one time, and then it was really good. I liked it for the story and also the sex and nudity helps with the violence, and kind of disappointed the past couple of seasons with regards to those two factors. But hey, what can you do? Anyway, that's pretty much. I basically looking forward to discussing episode 1, season 1 with you guys.
And I'll just give you my quick story. I started watching it freshman year of college, and then I watched the first season, I think, with my friends, and then I binge watched the rest of it. And this was during the time of season 5, when it was after the season 5 off season, whatever. But I kept up with the show kind of with clips on YouTube. I didn't watch them. I just watched all the bad things, and then or the most epic parts, and then I caught up to the whole thing, and then I read the books. So yeah, it's season 5 was when I was I think I not watched it live, but I saw it when it was available, and then I watched the whole thing. But anyways, I digress. So who wants to start off what we start off the first episode with, which is the cold open? Want me to start? Who wants to start?
I don't know. Did you want to read the comments of the folks who were here that when they started?
So I asked. Oh, yeah. So I asked people in the chat, when did they start with Game of Thrones? Was it in the books or was it in the show? The dog Sidious says the show. Ben Hogan says, like Johnny, he came into the show in season 2, got binged both, and then read everything. I've finished everything until dance week the season 3, until season 3 was released. CD or Cardinal Doomsday says the show. So a lot of people are show then book, and for Cardinal Doomsday. So it was my first year out of, I guess, high school. So it was when I went to college kind of thing. And then but I guess that was it. So a lot of people were show people. We don't have many book to show people. But yeah, let's I guess start with what happens in the cold open. So in the first couple of scenes of this, we see 3 men coming beyond a wall in a frozen area, likely with a lot of snow, presumably a northern climate. And then the 3 men separate. One of them, which we come to find out his name is Will, sees the aftermath of a massacre of a bunch of wildlings, and then he flees and finds the other men. After the idea of desertion brings up and then he runs away, they go back and continue investigating. And then one of the dead people that they thought weren't going to come back to life comes back and ends up killing one of the men, I can't remember at this point, and then leaving 2 alive. And then another of the dead people kills, I forget which one, and then we are left alive with Will, who is alive to tell the story. So if anybody can do a better...
I'm ready.
All right.
Waymar, Royce, and Will, and Garrett. Those are the 3, and Waymar actually was the one that got slayed first. A little bit of difference between the books is we didn't get to see the sword fight, which it wasn't much of a sword fight in the books, but it was very beautifully written, I could say. It seems like we got a nod to the Isle of Faces with the symbolism there. That symbol also it's kind of like an infinity symbol as well, but with the head stacked onto the sticks. I still think the allofaces somehow has to come into play, even though it doesn't look like they're going to do that now. Maybe they went away from what they were going to originally do. It's very cool how they shot the White Walkers. I guess they had to make them scary for the for TV, but I believe they did a really, really good job with that. And, you know, dead children coming back to life. Nothing scarier than like a horrific child that's coming after you. I mean, but go ahead.
Yeah, for the first thing that I noticed about it is how cold it felt. It's not just the way they portrayed it. Obviously, you know, it's winter and it's snowing, but all the sounds, all the just the sounds and the way they move the camera with kind of showing not just them and the ground, but the trees covered in the wind, and it felt cold. It felt like winter, and you know, when the camera pans out a little bit and we see them, you know, this huge wall and just a tiny little gate that is not that tiny when you're close to it. The scary part, I guess, the unexpected was within that was the first, I guess, scene, you could say, the scene outside the wall is we see magic right away. We see this strange thing, like when it's approaching, you're like, could it be? Are they? What is it? Are they dead? Like, is something going to happen? And then boom, within just a couple minutes, we are introduced that, yep, magic or something or whatever it is. It's not going to be just your regular show with people in medieval times or whatever. It's going to have stuff in it. So they introduce it right away. Later on, it's quiet, but we know what it's going to be about. It's going to be there. So we know the guy wasn't lying. And then what can be done for him to prove it? He didn't do much to prove it, but yeah, we know the truth about it. No?
Yeah, the first thing when I started watching the episode yesterday was I just remember like how cool and how catchy the theme song was to Game of Thrones. Dun, 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 dun. That was really cool and had actually showing all the different locations that they were gonna basically visit in the opening credits was pretty cool. Anyway, in terms of the accuracy of the adaptation from the books, from the prologue of the Game of Thrones book to the opening scene, I thought was really, really excellently well done. In fact, probably, it's probably one of the best adaptations in the whole series to what actually occurred in the books. So, the caricatures of especially Waymar Royce was awesome because he's basically the third son of a nobleman, right? Who didn't have any future unless he did join the Watch. Really, I mean, he wasn't going to inherit any lands or anything like that, but he just like acted like such a douchebag, and that's kind of like how he was described in the books too, which made it really, really good to see. So yeah, in terms of the opening scene, the cold open, I loved it. It was really, it catches you. It caught you. The only thing maybe I would have done a little bit differently or would have preferred was maybe not to review the White Walker at that time, like how he looked like. Add a little bit more suspense to what they actually look like, as opposed later on, during the season, as opposed to showing what they look like right in the beginning. That's all. But yeah, great.
Yeah, and isn't Scrawl the language of the White Walker? Are the others? Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But I think we almost, it seems like in that first scene we heard it a little bit, the clickety clacking and the screeching of ice, and but they didn't ever go back to that. I don't know if that was actually what it was, but it sounded a little closer to what you heard in the books. I do agree. It was as close as you could possibly get to put it in cinematic terms.
Yeah. So then we get our opening credits where we basically find out what are the main places that we're going to be shown throughout this series and this episode. And then our first location is the north with Winterfell, and we are introduced to the Stark family with Rob, John, and Bran, where Rob and John are teaching Bran how to uh, play with a archery with bow and arrow, and presumably the parents of being Ned and Catelyn. And then you see the daughter. So you see Sansa and Arya in sewing with the septa, and then you see that Arya ends up beating Bran with the bow and arrow. And then we are introduced to back with the deserter as what's his name again? I can't remember his name.
Will.
But no, but the man who tells Ned that they have a deserter. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Old Twisty Beard. Why can't I remember it now? Someone help me. Oh, that's crazy.
It's
Roderick Castle.
yes,
right?
Sir
Yeah.
Roderick Castle tells Ned and Catelyn that there's been a deserter, and then that they have to go deal with it. And then Ned tells Catelyn that Bran is also going to watch the beheading. What were your thoughts on the introduction of the Stark family?
There was a lot of they needed to introduce them properly without saying, "Hello, my son, oldest son." But there were a couple of scenes like that where like he's only 10, or like there were those little plugins of, but they have to do it somehow. So they did it okay. I mean, listening to it, knowing who they are already, maybe from that perspective, seemed to me like, oh, and she's not your mother or something like that, to kind of let us know that, yeah, okay, so there's something about it. Like, who is he? Like, why is John looking at Catelyn like that? Like, why is she looking at him like that? And then we find out later after that look that, yeah, she's not his mother. And little things like that. It was kind of funny, but they had to do it somehow. If they had more time, they could stretch it out and like, oh, apparently he's not related to her, apparently she's angry at him. They had to do it this way, so all good. It was interesting seeing them. At first I didn't know who this little girl is, who is just like ticked off and stabbing that little thing or who the older one, beautiful one is, but then we find out, they say, oh, your sister, and they do it this way. First they show them and we kind of wonder how are they related since the camera is on them, but later on we find out, yes, your sister and your sister. So they did it nicely. It had to be done.
I'm your sister? No, one of the favorite seasons
You're my
is when
love brother.
Arya hits the bullseye while Bran's trying to, when he's shooting arrows off into the woods. I thought that's just brilliant foreshadowing. And, right before that, we see Sansa with the needle. So I love that part. And, the man who passes the sentence must swing the sword. That's so important. And also, I guess we'll talk about the scene after that. But yeah, Cat, man, that actor can make the evilest look on her face. She makes me feel awful about myself, and she isn't even staring at me. So it's just very powerful open scene. And yeah, go ahead, Milt.
Yeah. No, I mean, in terms of the introductions to the Stark children, I thought it was pretty good. Poor Rob didn't actually get a speaking part until like kind of the second scene at the archery place, but whatever it takes, right? What I liked was basically the foreshadowing of the kind of like the characteristics of basically John, Sansa, and Arya, because I don't think Rob and Rickon basically was really focused much in those scenes, but especially in the sewing circle, right, where you had Sansa and Arya. I mean, Sansa was being, she was sewing perfectly. Seth Mordain was focusing all her attention on her, and there's poor Arya, sitting next to her, being ignored and feeling restless and everything like that, until she hears like, Bran trying to shoot arrows, and then the second scene at the archery, ground. You see her basically, taking a shot, hitting a bullseye. I thought that was really cool the way that was handled. So it basically shows you kind of like Arya as being, she doesn't want to be a lady. Sansa is shown as like the perfect princess in a way. She does everything perfectly. And Bran, they show him as a really, really bad archer. And Jon being ignored. So yeah, no complaints about the introduction of the Starks.
You want me to complain? I mean, it could, I guess, maybe.
No, I'll probably wait till season 5 to complain.
Okay, cool. Kenzie?
And then, wait, hold on. Then the boys and
Oh, didn't you have a thought about the where Ned and Catelyn were standing?
well, if we're going into later seasons, it kind of sort of parallels to Jon and Sansa when Jon and Sansa are overlooking, I guess, the courtyard after they come out of their first meeting as when Jon is declared king, and then they're talking about like how they have to trust each other and how it's like all this important, blah 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 blah, and then Maester, what's his name?
Lewin. Lewin.
No, the one in season 7, who was the Maester for the Boltons. It was Maester. I can't remember.
Harwin? No.
I can't remember. Anyway,
the Maester. Next time we'll remember names.
But anyway, the Maester that comes in is like, oh, there's like a letter for you. Is like symbolizing like, because if you believe in the Ned and Jon and Catelyn and Sansa are the two paralleled people.
It's Maester Wokan. Yeah.
Maester Walken. Okay, I'll write that down.
Christopher Walken. Just remember that. Chris
Walken. Okay. And then we have the beheading scene where Jon, Bran, Robb, Ned, Theon, and a bunch of northern men go to behead Will, and Jon tells Bran that he can't look away and that his father will know if he looks away, basically telling the kids that they cannot fear death, and that if you're going a dead direwolf mother with five or six pups, which they presume has been killed by the mountain lion. Go ahead. In terms of your thoughts, from the beheading to when we find the direwolf pups.
Okay, I think I unmuted first. Everybody's avoiding. See, this is so. Okay. It's always good to go last because you know what other people said. But I guess I can say things first. So yay, I guess. Anyway, so we're talking about the beheading and then talking about that lovely roadkill that we roadkill. With the beheading, I thought that Ned should say something. I mean, the dude who's gonna die with the beheading, and after the things I found out about when they chop off somebody's head, that can happen. Yeah, he deserved to have a little bit more words with the guy who's gonna cut off his head. And Ned I don't even know if Ned said anything to that poor guy. Like, he didn't say, yes, I'm gonna tell your family, even if he lied. Well, he can't lie. Oh, well, yes, he can lie. He could have lied again for that guy. Yes, I'm gonna tell your family this. The dude dying didn't like okay, anything? Will you say this? Nothing. Ned, that was bad, Ned. I did not like that at all. With the idea that Bran had to look, I kind of get it. I mean, childhood ends at some point, and if girls who are just a couple years older, I don't know how old Danny was getting married to Drogo. Drogo, did I say? Yeah, Drogo. I'm mixing up those names. Yeah, he was old enough at that point over there at those times. About the not blinking, not looking away, how would Ned know? Like, he wouldn't know. He's busy making sure he doesn't miss and he doesn't chop up that block. Yes, my co-host, you want to say something?
Father will know.
Father will know. Father knows everything. Oh, but yeah, so he didn't look away. I'm surprised that he didn't throw up. That would be more realistic. Little boy seeing, head tumble, and I think there's a hill too. So I don't know how that. I'm sure they picked a good spot for head not to tumble. So I'm just getting images right now. Um, so that, and then that was intense. Seeing that Theon was there. I'm surprised that Theon was the one helping him. That it wasn't one of his sons, holding the ice or that thing that held ice. So that must be an honor too, I guess. So he was being honored by that. I'm surprised that his Ned's sons weren't doing this for Ned and just standing on his side. As far as I don't want to call it a roadkill, but that's what it reminded me of. In the middle of the road, or kind of not in the middle, but very visible. That thing was huge. I mean, both of those beasts were huge. And just seeing the imagery of it, I didn't catch it the first time I watched it. I had no idea. I was just like completely eating something, trying not to choke on it. That's heavy because you're trying to watch it. You're looking up and you're eating, and then you're like, you have to think this, and then you have to think not to choke. And I didn't notice the fact that it was a stag and it was a dire wolf. And then when John said, "This is the so house sigil or whatever you call it," I'm like, "Oh, you're right. It is." Awesome. So I liked it. I liked it a lot, how it tied in. I liked the fact that there was a little pop, although it didn't make sense to me why he found it later and smaller. Meaning he was smaller because the other ones looked bigger. This one looked smaller and didn't look malnourished. It didn't look half dead. It looked really thriving and clean and pretty and white. Like, oh, I'd like to take that. They look better than the dogs that I adopted. So, yeah. But they're, not on the show. And I'll be quiet now.
One of the things I was going to bring up, and Bubba Husky mentioned in the chat, is a madman sees what he sees, and I believe that's foreshadowing for a lot of things. A mad woman sees what she sees as well. I think it works both ways, and then that possibly can play out in season 8. Someone going mad that we're not expecting. I think that's heavy foreshadowing, and maybe even Bran going mad, staying inside something too long, possibly. We'll see what happens with that. It was a very intense scene. That I never, well, I don't know. I'm sorry. It's hard to think about the beheading there, and the look on Will's eyes, and you can tell he's telling the truth, and you can even tell Ned almost wants to believe him, but Ned, bound by his laws or his honor, his type of honor, does what he does. And yes, the stags and the direwolf. There's not much more I can say to that, except that the only real difference was there was no snow on the ground, and Ghost actually is whimpering in the show when he's silent in the books. But that was shot fantastically. I believe they used an actual roadkill stag for that, an elk. And that scene was very heavy, very heavy. I don't have much more else to
add. Yeah. I mean, it was a long scene, but it was really good. I mean, especially the beheading, and then finding the wolf pups. I think I agree with whatever else everybody else has said already. But what I like is that we actually got a glimpse into the Stark code of honor. Especially Ned Stark's code of honor, when he mentions, the man who swings a sword must pass the sentence. I thought that's a pretty cool line. I really felt kind of bad for Will in a way, because Will was begging Ned to tell his family, I tell them I'm no coward, and that kind of stuff. And Nev just looking at him, all grim and everything. He didn't just say a word or even nod his head or anything. He was like being a total asshole to poor Will because of course Ned probably thought that the guy was just deserted the night's watch, so he didn't care and basically chops his head off. So just a moment of silence for Will. Anyway, so after the beheading scene, another thing that was missing from the books was the fact that they didn't foreshadow Theon being the asshole that he actually turns out to be later on season 2. In the books, after Will's head is chopped off and rolling on the ground, Theon basically kicks it like a rock, like a football. So in the books, so Theon's character is not being foreshadowed at least in this scene. In the Wolf, as you go farther along into the Wolf, defining the wolves and everything like that, I thought that was pretty well done. And there was a lot of symbolism and foreshadowing there, especially with the stag killing the wolf, right? And with the five puppies, if you will, to me means that a stag is going to kill the wolves, which pretty much is what happened, or at least a half stag, quote unquote. And the 5 puppies are going to be affected one way or another, which they were later on. So, liked it. Cool scenes, lots of symbolism, lots of foreshadowing. What else do you want?
I would like to say one thing that me and Kenzie rewatched this together. And, I figured that the only cure for chapped lips in Westeros is a beheading. So... I'm sorry, I can't even get it out. That's making me laugh.
All right.
Yeah, so we got Will, who says they're real, and then Eddard is like, no. They're like, he's like, because he's been taught for years and years, like all his life, that they don't exist, and you have to believe that they don't exist because there's the wall, the wall keeps people safe. And then with rewatching with Johnny, it's that Bran is like, are you sure? Like he's like, are you sure? Because he even questions his own father, like, are you sure that he's lying? And then we see later on down the line that Bran is closely involved with the White Walkers, which is very interesting. But in terms of the pups, it again, like that whole scene establishes Jon Snow's role in the Stark family, as he says, "I'm not a Stark," which point 1 for RLJ, I guess, Bob Husky, or and as well with the direwolf pups and Jon being separated, it's because he's not intimately involved with the 5 other children. It's just like Ghost represents him. And a book inaccuracy is that Ghost makes noises, even though he doesn't in the book. Anyway, moving on.
Before you move on, I just want to mention, because I think I was muted when I was laughing. Not that you need to hear my weird laugh, but yeah, the whole imagery and how they're showing it. And yes, those lips were awfully chopped, and I was in pain looking at, like, the first time I watched it, I think I did it on different TV, and now I think I have a bigger one, much bigger one, and I'm looking like, wait a minute. What's wrong with his lips? That automatically went like, that must be hurting him. I'm like, is there no sunscreen over there? So yeah, right on. Things we notice when we rewatch this stuff. Even we can even see those awfully chopped lips, and how he was not bleeding from that. I don't know. That, I guess, too late for the doctor, because yeah, at that point only beheading worked.
Yeah, and then the next scene is we move down to the capital. We move down to King's Landing, where we see Jon Arryn's body being laid, I guess what would be state, maybe, I don't know. And then we see Jaime and Cersei talking for the first time about their secret, and how it would affect the kingdom, basically saying that Robert would have both of us killed. He'd have everybody that we know killed because of our secret. So thank God he died, pretty much. Yeah, what do we feel about the Lannister twins' introduction into the series?
Oh, yeah, well, it definitely makes you think that they had something to do with it, especially if you haven't read the books at all. And I believe, Jamie not wanting to be handed the king is really, really interesting. Now he might be the golden hand of the king, but I just see that as being really cliche. But I think it's worth mentioning because that's something he never wanted to be. But the real heavy part of the scene was John Aaron's body and the creepy stones they put on their eyes in the show. I mean, it kind of like haunts my nightmares. But Jimmy Whispers, he was spot on. I think they got him. The first thing I thought was they picked a great cast, and that it was going to be good. Really, I mean, there wasn't a lot in the scene. It was just kind of a quick introduction, making you think that they had something to do with it. So, and who doesn't love a little incest?
Yeah, yeah. The scene with John Aaron's death was actually really really well shot. Right? I mean, they had the bells ringing, signifying like basically the death of somebody really really important in King's Landing. And they also had like the Silent Sisters, right, walking around them, which was a really good depiction of what they look like and what they do. Yeah, in their first scene, you don't get you don't get a feeling that Jamie and Cersei have incestuous feelings towards each other, and which makes it even a bigger surprise in the last scene of the episode. So, which is cool because I didn't want them kissing like during the funeral of John Aaron or anything like that. So but I think it was really well done in terms of they didn't prematurely show anything that was going to happen later to basically lessen the effect of the final scene of the episode. So props for them for filming that scene correctly for a TV show.
Exactly, because I know there was something weird, and maybe I didn't catch it, but I didn't hear anything, like uh, let's say the last scene completely shocked me. I didn't expect it watching it the first time, so I don't know if I missed that scene when Cersei was kind of looking at the dead body of Jon Arryn, and then Jamie approached her, but I did not get a feeling of incest at that point. I may have missed it. I missed some stuff, but I know there was something. They were talking about something and about what if he finds out and this and that and how he actually is and about the hunting and other stuff that he does, which we won't mention on the channel because I don't know if it's approved. Kenzie approved. Um, so I knew there was something out, but I didn't. I don't remember. I mean, rewatching it, yeah, I know they're doing it, but trying to think of it as watching it for the first time, I don't think I saw it as something that bad. I knew there's some secret. I didn't know what secret. And they did it really well. She um she looked like her part from the beginning. She got it right. I know this was a first episode for all of them, but just thinking about it, John was John, Cersei was Cersei. She stayed Cersei. These were actors who are just who they know what they're doing, or if they don't know what they're doing, they're just doing what they know. I don't know if that even made sense because some of them already had a lot of acting behind them, but some of them were new and they stayed the parts throughout the series.
I think the wig budget was a lot higher during season 1. Notice how she lost a wig in the past 2 seasons. So just saying that the wig budget, as well as the Direwolf budget and the Dragon budget, lessened.
And the first were much better later on because the flimsy fur that John or whoever like, I have a better one. Like, dude, spend some money on that thing.
Less and less compliments from Milt as every episode goes on.
Yeah, we got I think the Cersei wig though that she has in the first like 5 seasons gets dyed and given to Sansa when she when Sophie Turner was platinum blonde for a movie role and she couldn't dye her hair red. Anyways, moving on. We after this scene we head back to Winterfell, where we have a Raven arrive saying that Jon Arryn has died, and Catelyn brings this news to Ned in the Godswood, and that we learn that Cat to Jon Arryn, and that the king rides for Winterfell, and that preparations go into Winterfell for the king's arrival. And then we have a quick scene, which I think is their only scene together, all three of them, with Rob, Jon, and Theon, talking about the Queen and Joffrey and how they like about sexual things. Anyways, and then we see Bran climbing the walls of Winterfell. Go ahead.
Oh, goodness. I'm just going to throw a little bit out there. Let our guest do a bunch of talking, because I know Milt loves to talk. No, I'm just kidding. But the Godswood scene is very interesting. It's the first time we get to see a heart tree or a weirwood, and I love the way they did it. And immediately we get a blood sacrifice, pretty much. Not literally, but he is cleaning the sword off underneath the Godswood, which is a tribute to the old gods. And we can tell that, like in the books, Catelyn feels uneasy there. So I thought it was really, really well shot. I don't have many complaints with that. Looking back on it, that's a tough scene. There's a few tough scenes in the first season with Ned, looking back on it, that are kind of tough. As far as when, the king's... Does it get to the king arriving? Where were we at after that? I'm sorry.
They have announcements that the king is coming, and then I just cut it off when we have Bran climbing the walls of his first climb through Winterfell.
Oh, okay. So he's climbing to look up. Yeah. In the books, Bran is a even crazier climber. He's running around there everywhere. But I think that was a good ode to it, and I just really thought that was well done. I mean, I don't have this first episode, I have to say, was stunning. It was mind-blowing. It was awesome. Take it away, folks.
I guess I unmuted first, I think. And I just need to kind of, I guess, apologize if I kind of lag or something, or if you direct a question to me. We're going to have some serious storm here where I live. So if it's kind of laggy, maybe right now it's coming this way. That's why if you're asking me a question and I don't respond, just, send it in the chat or something. Anyway, so this scene here, looking at it again, Bran climbing, Arya over there, and the shot, I mean, it was beautiful and gorgeous, and you could see that, hundreds of people just kind of on that winding road. But I'm thinking, don't they have people to watch for that? There are walls, there's a safe way of climbing that, and I'm sure they have archers and all kinds of people who can do that, who can warn, not even warn, who tell the people, oh, there's somebody coming this way, give a warning. I know there are people like that. Bran doesn't have to be the first one to see them. Plus, they were halfway already down towards where that road was. They didn't just peek out of the woods and hey, we see them. I saw them first. Mom, there you go. They're coming. But again, it had to be done because we had to see them as, approaching. You don't just want to cut off the camera where the first person gets out of the woods and that's where it cuts off. So obviously they needed to do that. But again, stunning images, him climbing. We are introduced to him being able to climb, and him promising his mother that he won't, but then he lies. And so we know he can lie. Maybe that's also going to be playing part later on, that, yeah, even as a little boy, he was able to lie. And kids try experimenting with that, and he surely did lie to his mother, but I guess his mother was okay with it too, because I don't think she followed up on the fact that, yeah, I know you're lying, but now look me in the eye and tell me that you're not gonna do it. I need to see you say that. I don't think he ever said that. So that's kind of as a mother, yeah, I want to make sure to get a yes from the kid and actually to spend time with them, pull them to the side and say, I don't want you dying, you can climb, but the reason is blah, 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 blah. Why don't Cat actually take him on the side and say, dude, don't do that. You need to, you're important. I don't want you dying. But other than that, and this is just some things I noticed after I didn't notice any of that. I was just so into it. Like Johnny said, this is actually my favorite episode of all of them all. Falling in love with that. Everybody's being introduced, so much info. We're just being flooded, and then with all that information later on, things are explained, expanded upon. So just because I'm noticing that stuff doesn't mean I hate it. I'm just noticing a couple things about it. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I like the scenes in this. I mean, the scene that we're talking about. I mean, it starts with like Caitlin looking really concerned about what she just read in the note, and then she made some sort of comment about boy, these wolves are growing really fast, and I mean, it makes me kind of wonder like how much time has passed since they found the wolf pups to then and to now. I mean, did they really grow that fast? I mean, I don't know the dire growth rate. Maybe somebody can find out for us. Anyway, and then the Godswood scene was filmed exceptionally well. I think that's a really beautiful scene, showing all the trees and then showing this one singular white where Ned is sitting down underneath it, and and this is the first scene that we actually get an idea of the different religions, right? Ned and Caitlin are discussing, yeah, my guys don't care about this, and then Caitlin's talking about her gods, and it's like you're the one with the gods with the rules, right? So I thought that was the first thing that we saw about the different religions of Westeros, which was cool. So yeah, Bran climbing. Yeah, I mean, we kind of get a foreshadowing of his potential, future in acrobatics, but unfortunately, that went down the tubes later on in the episode. But yeah, cool.
Yep. And yeah, I pretty much agree with like all of that was said. And the next scene, which happens like right after, is the king arrives in Winterfell. We get our introduction to the royal family. We see Ned and Robert how they have an interesting relationship, and then Ned and Robert go down to the crypts of Winterfell, and where they're standing in front of Lyanna's statue, who we find out is very important later on in the story. But we can talk about Robert and his relationship with all of the Starks and how he interacts with them, and etc.
I'll just make one key point about this scene, and shout out to Bubba Husky. This kind of comes from him. He helped me out. We kind of was thinking on the same thing with this when Robert placed the feather in Lyanna's hand. That's just like the Egyptian goddess Mot, who judges the souls of the dead in the halls of Osiris, and it's weighed against the heart, and it's very, very intriguing because it has to do with truth, balance, order, harmony, law, morality, and justice. And it's very, I guess, what would you say, ironic that King Robert of House Baratheon would place that in her hand. And just the scenes with all the intro was very cool. I really got a kick out of Arya always asking where the imp was. That just killed me. But go ahead. I just wanted to shout out to Bubba Husky. Anybody, help me out here. I'm dying.
Oh my gosh. No, I'm just sitting in a chat for a little bit, and I thought Kenzie would jump in, and I don't have our screen, so I'm not looking at who's unmuted, so I didn't know like who's gonna jump in next. I'll be quiet now, I promise, for a little while at least. Enjoy the silence from me, because when I start talking, I won't shut up until somebody mutes me.
What did you think about the scene? No.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, about the scene. Okay, to save Johnny here. Yeah. I mean, I thought, I mean, it was good. I mean, I think in the beginning of the scene, we actually get kind of another glimpse into Arya's character, right? I mean, she's wearing the soldier's helmet, right? So it kind of reinforces the fact that she doesn't want to be kind of like a lord's daughter or a princess, right? She wants to be a fighter or a soldier almost. And she's running around with that helmet on, and she's late, so she doesn't really care much for the rules either. So it was good. It was good for the development of Arya, and as a foreshadowing of her character. Yeah, I mean, the whole arrival of the king's party, I thought was really really cool. You had the King's Guard, you had Joffrey, looking like a total shithead, riding his little horse, with that smug look. You had Sansa, with his, her eyes, on him, and it's like the only time that you actually get to see the Hound's helmet, right? He doesn't wear it again in any other episode, so I think the Hound's helmet was pretty badass.
That really pissed Jerem off too, by the way. That pissed Jerem off really bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's too bad it can't wear it again. Yeah. So, yeah, it was good. Yeah, I mean, and the whole relationship between Robert and Ned, I thought that was really well done. Where they're pretty much as close as brothers from growing up in the Vale together, and have them laugh and hug one another. After Ned bends the knee first is it was really touching. I think in terms of the casting, I think everybody loves Mark Addy as an actor, but the way Robert's described as in the books is completely different to how Mark Addy looks like, in the sense that Robert Baratheon's like described in books as being like 6.5 feet tall, right? Like a big giant of a man, and then yeah, he grows fat in the end, but he's still a giant. And Mark Addy is a couple of inches shorter than Ned Stark, which is entirely accurate. So I mean, but he's a great actor, so that probably overcomes the kind of the character differences between the two. Yeah, and you also get a glimpse into Robert's character as well, about how he pretty much hates Cersei, right? Basically treats her with total disrespect when she asks him, "Hey, do you want to rest first, my love?" And then Robert just ignores her and wants to head down to the crypts. So you have a glimpse into the Robert Baratheon basic character there. So it was good. It's a great episode, and you learn a lot about a lot of the characters. I mean, a lot of the characters are being fleshed out in the first episode, which is a hard thing to do.
For this one, like we said, Arya and her, like you said, guys, like Arya and just her complete disregard for like the queen is like right there. And I wondered, because right after she said something like that, or I think she also mentioned so they were like, this is Queen's brother, or was it actually referring to the there? Like she has, sorry. Oh gosh, I can't hear you.
Oh, she was first asking about Tyrion, and then she asked like Jaime, because when Jaime reveals his helmet, like takes off his helmet, he's like, "That's the Queen's twin brother." So she like already knows who these people are.
Yeah, and this is interesting too, because what didn't Robert say it's been 9 years, and I'm thinking, do they have pictures? I don't see any portraits over there. How do they know? I mean, obviously blonde, and they know who's going to be there, and not anybody. But so all that aside, Arya, I mean, dang, that girl can like, I don't know if I mean, I would think stuff, but I don't know if I'll be just so bold to say it in front of everybody. And the whole presentation, and it was so serious, and I didn't know at that moment if he's making a joke, if Robert is making a joke, or how it's going to end, and they're starting to laugh and all that. So that was kind of okay. he's kind of arrogant. He's a king. Like, okay, so this is going to be the kind of king we're going to see here. So within those just few moments, I knew, okay, Ned is Ned, and then there's this king, and after just a couple words that were uttered, I already knew, like, okay, that's going to be Robert. And at that point, I have not even went anywhere near the book, so it was all fresh to me. And the way he completely dismissed his wife, yep. I don't even know if he responded to her. He just kind of left her, like, without that. That's just rude. I mean, who does it? Oh, he does it. And are we stopping at that, or are we going to the crypts right now, too?
You can talk about the crypts as well.
Okay, just checking. So there are a lot of things presented, right? We see the statue and him mentioning why, Robert mentioning why is she there? She should be somewhere. He mentions not stars, sun and something else, that she should be standing there. And then they talk about you have a daughter, I have a son. I didn't even think about that later. I mean, at that moment, obviously, think about it now with different theories. There are daughters and there is a son. So that kind of played a role. And then the way Ned was silent about it, and how much sadness was in Ned's eyes when his sister was mentioned, and how much fury was in Robert's eyes. So he still has not. And this is weird because he's talking about this woman with more love, and she's dead already, long dead. And there's his wife, Queen, and he just kind of treats her like that in front of people. That's just embarrassing for himself too, for her, because he's embarrassing her, but he's embarrassing himself.
Yeah. You know what was funny about Robert's whole thing about Lyanna was, Robert was talking about Lyanna like as if he actually knew her, for her whole life, and knew what she was actually, knew her actual personality and knew her as a person, when in fact he had no idea what she was like in real life, in the storylines. And then you can kind of see Ned, he didn't want to say anything, but he had that look, right? Just like, you didn't really know her, dude. I mean, at all. So why are you saying this stuff? And the interesting thing also about Lyanna's statue is that she's the only female in the crypts of Winterfell. So she's actually holds special place in the Winterfell crypts, which is pretty cool. And I'm not sure if anybody's ever read up about this, but and I still haven't found a satisfactory answer. But what is the significance of putting that feather in her hand, the statue? What does that feather mean?
I have no idea. So there's actual he put it there, or he just picked it up and placed it there?
Yeah. Robert puts the feather that they
the
have.
heart, when it gets weighed by Mott, it's weighed for guilt. And Robert putting that feather there is, in my opinion, symbolizing his guilt and his ignorance toward the situation. That every kind of represents the opposite of what he thinks is going on, in my opinion. But hey.
I mean, I don't know. Is that a custom, a Westerosi custom? Because nobody really talks about it, so it's just kind of a thing. I mean, I was kind of curious, what exactly does that mean? I mean, maybe that is it. Maybe it's, I mean, if I was Robert and I was like really in love with this girl that I thought I was in love with, when I put like what she liked the most, which is like a blue winter rose in her hand, why put a feather? I mean, there has to be some sort of symbol, some sort of custom. I just don't know what it is.
Well, at that point, I don't know if winter rose would be. Are they blue? The winter rose. So wouldn't be
blue.
kind of like, I don't think he would place that, because at that point I think that would be a reminder of what the other guy gave her as a gift. So maybe that wasn't it. And apparently she must have loved these flowers. But no, that is interesting. I guess when visiting graves, people bring flowers. Some people bring gifts. They light candles. They did light candles, right? There were candles lit, or I'm just imagining it right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a custom like that there too. Interesting, the whole feather. Yeah.
Well, Lamar, when you said Robert's fury, like House Baratheon's words, ours is the fury. So there you
He
go.
portrayed it really well. I could see that. I mean, I could see, like I said, we're laughing with other stuff that I love chaos in Westworld. Yeah, I see Fury when I know Fury when I see one. Yeah.
And then we have, I guess, just
Kenzie, your
Yes.
sound went out for a second. Start over. Go ahead. Oh, nope, out again. Dang it, this was happening earlier. Ah, nope.
okay.
Maybe
There we go.
we can try not having cameras from time to time. Look at video to see if it goes away.
So for going back into the Robert's introduction to the Starks, we kind of have our first, I guess, seeds into the Robert's curse idea. Like everybody who he has a scene with is very important later on in the story. So we have like Robert touching, like rustling Rickon's hair. He hugs Catelyn. He shakes Ned's hand. He says to Sansa, "Oh, you're a pretty one." He asks Arya what her name is, and then he tells Bran that he would be a soldier one day. So it's like King Robert's curse, like eventually, like plays on. And then with the Lyanna, Ned, and Robert scene, this scene pretty much establishes how important this dead character is. Literally, what, 45 minutes into the episode? Like, we are figuring out that this person who's long since dead, she's been dead for 17 years, 16 years. She's very important to the story. We just don't know exactly her, I guess, plot in this story moving forward. And then moving along, we have Tyrion. We have our first scene of Tyrion in the brothel with Roz, and then Jaime comes and finds him, and then we flash back to a Lyanna scene, but we can skip over that. And then we have the introduction of the Targaryen siblings. But yeah, we can go over that in a second, I guess. So if we want to talk about Tyrion and Jaime for a minute.
Yeah. Tyrion and Jaime. Interesting. I heard somewhere, this is kind of off topic. I heard somewhere that I'm going to call him Tyrion. He didn't want to have a beard on at some point later on. He wanted not to have it written in. And that man needs to have a beard. He looks 1,000, that's not even percent. Let's just say a lot of, he looks better with a beard. Character, it shows his character basically. But again, he starts without, and then as he builds up and learns, he looks older, I guess. But just a side note, he needs a beard. Of facial hair. Completely off topic, but since we're talking about him, we're introduced to his personality and how he is, and then later on we'll see how he changes. And just interesting that this is the first place he would be. I mean, understandably, that's his first place to visit. He didn't care about introductions. Everybody knows who he is. He doesn't need to go there and greet everybody. He just basically wanted to go and enjoy himself. So we're introduced to that kind of Tyrion. And that makes me wonder how he became like that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Tyrion was great, without the beard. Actually, Elmore, did you like his frosted hair? And that's like the only episode where his hair actually has highlights in it. If you noticed that, look really closely.
Completely different, look. Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, he kind of looks like a younger Peter Dinklage, right? So I think it may have been done intentionally to make him appear younger, and then he'll just grow and progress and mature, later on in the series. But anyway, nevertheless, no, I instantly became a fan of Roz in this episode, in this scene, for obvious reasons, and also I think we also get a glimpse of Jaime and Tyrion's relationship, right? I mean, they have a great relationship, versus the relationship between Cersei and Tyrion that we see later on. I think they really have a good brotherly, very healthy brotherly relationship, and kind of shows that Jaime isn't as bad of a guy as everybody thinks he is until the last scene where the tables turn again on him. But yeah, good brothel scene, one of the best ones in the series.
Yes, I forgot. We're introduced to Roz in this scene, and then we find out her later importance / her connection to Rob, probably, John and Theon. But Elamar, if you wanted to say anything else, I don't know where Johnny went, but yeah.
Oh, there's not much to add to that scene. That was many memes made from that scene, but I think it does show the closeness of the brothers. And you're wrong about the hair, Milt. They just went with some horrible hair color in the first season, and they decided better and switched it up.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with hair coloring, Johnny, so you're going to need to educate me.
I wanted to add to that. Not recently, changing this and color for me. Like I went back to my favorite color after a break for whatever reason. I had a break from that color. I have to. I mean, Danny, gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. But please, I mean, blonde hair has more sheen to it, like that. Even if you make it, even if if you're not natural blonde, I don't know, it shines. I don't know if it shows on camera, but it is shiny. It is nice. It's not. Yeah, that's the only thing. It looked gorgeous, but when they did a close up, it's kind of like, oh, no, no, no. And it's natural hair too, so it should be healthy looking and shiny. And so that's the only thing about wigs. And Tyrion's hair, yeah, I get it. He looked much younger, but I guess now that somebody says Tyrion and I close my eyes, I'm picturing Tyrion from when he's older. So maybe that's the only thing that I'm kind of thinking about, because I've seen different Tyrions, I've seen different how he developed and how he changed the look, his look. So maybe that's why I'm kind of not completely fine with the way he looked in the beginning, because I've seen so much more different faces of Tyrion. So yeah, it's difficult going back to the first episode and seeing the characters for the first time for the 100th time.
I just wanted to quickly add that the actress who played Roz was only casted for that scene initially until they wanted to make her character more important later on. And then Johnny, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to say a really important line from that scene with Tyrion and Jaime is, "Don't leave me alone with these people." And we know Jaime will be with these people, and we'll see what happens with Tyrion and Jaime coming up in season 8. I think that's just a very interesting statement. It kind of popped out to me today. Of course, he's alone with them a couple of times, but I think it's going to play out like many of the foreshadowing things have played out multiple times in the show, at least from the beginning.
Yep. And then we have the scene where Robert asks Ned to be his hand, and then it flashes to Daenerys and Viserys in Essos. So we were kind of already touched on the Ned and Robert scene, but we get our first introduction to the long lost, or not the long lost, but the rightful Targaryen heirs, or heir, Viserys, and his younger sister, Daenerys. And this is her scene between the two of them before her introduction to Khal Drogo for the first time. And in this scene, we learn that Viserys has been and Daenerys have been protected by this man named Master Ilario, and that he gave her this special dress. And we see Daenerys's first resistance to heat, or like warmth, for the first time before we are introduced to Drogo and the Dothraki. So what do we feel about the Targaryen siblings?
Well, I'm going to make it quick, and you can go for it. I just wanted to say that was one of the scenes that I didn't like, that was misrepresenting Dany as having some sort of powers where she can't be burnt. If you have read the books, you know that's not how it went down. Yes, it was a scalding hot bath that she got in, but it wasn't like a great feat. But this is where you start to see the show's going to start to divert a little bit. But the scene was, I mean, as CD said, Legolas King was, well, he's just a real dick. And there's not much you can do. It's a painful scene to even watch. And, he's selling his sister off and treating her like a piece of meat. And then you have the cheesemonger, Illyrio, who's always up to something, and we'll see if we can figure that out later. I'll go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if I was ever going to buy, invest in property, I would probably invest in King's Landing. Secondly, I would probably invest in Pentos. I mean, that's a beautiful place. So, right by the ocean, is a really beautiful place. So I would definitely invest in some beachside property in Pentos, just for everybody. Investment tip. Yeah, but it was good, and I agree, Johnny. I think the whole scene with Viserys, basically giving Dany the dress and telling her to try it on was pretty creepy, and he basically molested her too during that scene. So, but I mean, it just shows you what kind of creep he is, and that's how Targaryens roll, right? Brother and sisters. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good segue for things to come. Her diving into the hot bath was pretty cool, and it is foreshadowing in the show as her being immune to heat, but that's not necessarily accurate at all. So, yeah, I mean, it could have been shortened a little bit, without the gratuitous nudity, but hey, whatever. It worked.
At first, like I said, at that point, I didn't even know that there were books, so I knew nothing going into it, and I think I liked it because I wasn't upset about anything being wrong or off. To me, it was whatever it was. After I read the first book, I was like ticked off. I was really ticked off on some things, not everything, but there are a couple things I was ticked off, and one of those scenes is later on in the episode here. I had no idea he's her brother until he was leaving that room. And then it felt even more icky. Like it felt icky that he's I was saying icky like a 10-year-old, but like brother and sister, and he's just and she's a victim. She just kind of, you could see it on her face. Just, and you knew, I mean, just watching her, yeah, she was very uncomfortable, and that's understatement. And then obviously it must have been happening before, because she didn't run, she didn't hit, she didn't try protecting herself, nothing. She just knew, she just had to kind of just go with it for whatever reason they want to wake the dragon. So that was really difficult looking at it from a woman's perspective, just like, oh, and through our head, like there's this thing going like, oh, we could have, we should have, she should have, like, no, you don't know until you're in that situation what you would have, could have, should have. And even if you were in that situation once, you don't know what you're going to do in the situation if it happens to you again. So that was hard looking at it, difficult. And then when he walks out and he says, like brother, sister, like ew, like just big ew, and not in a way like we're going to see later on with Jamie and Cersei, because that was they knew what they wanted and they both enjoyed it. This was just one-sided and just awful. So different points of, and he didn't even do much to her compared to what he could have done, but still it was just awful to watch. As far as the water, I really liked it, even though she wasn't she wasn't supposed to be immune to fire or warmth or anything, or being in hot place. That is something that I see missing from the book, and I wonder if George is thinking the same thing. If he admitted to a couple of things he could have done or should have not done, but I wish, that is one thing that I would love, that would be nice to see, that yeah, she has this thing, that it's not just happening by by chance or by giving the sacrifice, blood sacrifice. I like that part. I like that she went into that water and she wasn't burned. So that is one of the things from the book that is different, and that I actually prefer the show to it. Maybe just my high fantasy person part of me.
If they were like Dany, though, if any of the Valyrians were like Dany and immune to fire, then they would have just walked right out of the tomb of Valyria while it was exploding.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Possibly. So,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, I know what you mean, though.
So
Yeah,
it's still special. It's still special. Not all of them, because her brother, just because it's in the family, it doesn't manifest itself like genes, whatever. I'm not even talking about genes or whatever, but not everybody has to have it. It can be special, and it doesn't have to be special enough only with magic or with sacrifice or whatever made her not die later on in the books. But yeah, she can be special, and that can be her thing. So I'm not dissing it at all. Actually, I like that part, and I like the part that not all of them are like this, because they will be boring. So yeah, I did like this part where she could go in there and she didn't feel any pain. At least that's where she doesn't feel pain. She feels pain probably other times, but not at that moment.
See, in the book, she does that to get away from the pain her brother's causing her. It's basically a distraction to give herself pain. So
Okay.
it's a little more poetic in the books. That's why I didn't like it so much. Because they were under the impression they were going to get married basically their whole life. That was kind of the thing. They were going to be king and queen, and then, Dany all of a sudden has to get married to this horse lord, and it's got to be the most frightening time of her life, even though she's supposedly been chased by assassins her entire life, but we know that that's not the case. I thought you wanted to say something, Milt. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kenny. Or not, Milt?
No, I mean,
okay.
I think the whole idea behind Dany's supposed power being immune to heat is, it's a cool plot device for the show, right? It serves to distinguish her from any other normal human being, and that's what she is, right? She's special. She's above a normal human being, being a Targaryen dragon rider. So, yeah, it was
Felt like you're in love.
It's a good plot device.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And question. So, are we still talking about that scene where later on they're walking and then she's meeting Drogo? Are we because the entire thing? Because then there was scene with Drogo, and then scene with Illyrio when they're walking, and he's talking to Viserys, and then the part where Viserys tells his sister what he would be willing for others to do to her. We're still talking about if we are. So
we can move past that unless anybody's seen anything important in that part. But I think we kind of summed it up just with this one scene. That's what Milt, I think, was saying by it could have been shorter.
Yeah. No, the only thing I wanted to add is we see her kind of fear and fascination too, because I like looking at how I'm sure they're told in the beginning, okay, you're going to act this way, you act this way. So I see Dany being scared, but also fascinated. And any other young person could have, basically run. She's going to run just for instinct, but she didn't look that scared to me. She looked a bit scared and fascinated at the same time when she met him. And then when Illyrio is talking to Viserys, talking about, they're drinking to your health and this and that. It's obviously we're going to see the same words being spoken by a friend of Illyrio to Dany, in the show at least. So that is important part, that we see how impatient Viserys is, how just mean. We just see more of him, and we are hating him. The more he opened his mouth, the more I hated him. And then with Viserys just mentioning that final thing to her, that he wouldn't mind Drogo and his people and his horses doing to her whatever he said they would do. I'm like, oh my god, that is just gross. I'm a person who has images in my I see when somebody tells me something, I see images like, no, don't say that. Awful stuff. I had to look away to get a different image in my head. And then he kisses her on her forehead, like, dude, like, you're sick, like, you are so sick. Yeah, so I hated him even more after that.
Thank you.
Oh,
You need to get that off your chest.
Yes, I did. It was disturbing as heck. Ew.
Yeah. One quick thing that Viserys also mentions is he's basically marrying Daenerys off to use Khal Drogo's army, and he says, "We're going home with Khal Drogo's army." And as we know in season 6/season 7, Daenerys goes home with the Dothraki, but her real connection to the Dothraki is through Khal Drogo. Tinfoil? I don't know, but that's kind of where my notes left. But I looked up the plot, and we can talk about her wedding and subsequent, I guess, the wedding night at this point. So during her wedding, we have Viserys, Master Illyrio, and her introduction to Jorah Mormont, where he gives her books and songs from Westeros, and as well as her dragon eggs for the first time before she and Drogo have their wedding night. And Drogo gives her silver, is what I think the name is. And then that's kind of her storyline kind of wrapped up. I can't remember if there was a scene in between that. But yeah, go ahead.
There were 2 scenes, 2 longer scenes, but if you like, we can like you said, we can wrap up with Dany's and then continue to the next one, because that's going to lead into the final scene. So yeah, I guess I'll go since I'm already talking. So the wedding, interesting wedding. I've been to some interesting weddings, but this would be a very interesting wedding indeed. What did they say? 3 deaths is a minimum for a good wedding over there. A lot of doll one, yeah. A lot of fighting, a lot of wonderful gifts, and I noticed when she received those eggs, the music changed a little bit. Kind of, it was a little bit different than other times. So I didn't catch it the first time watching it, or even the second time watching it, but now rewatching it with a purpose in mind, I noticed that the music was a little bit different from whatever other music was there before that. I was surprised at how captivated she was by those gifts. I got this image in my head that she has been treated well. She had everything she wanted, and she still has that thing in her that she's fascinated by the books. And I was surprised that she never got the books with poems or anything from her country, or she never met anybody from her country. The world is huge over there, and I would have assumed that she met somebody from Westeros, and Jorah apparently was the first one. So those were just my kind of impressions of how sheltered she was, and how little she knew about the country or place she's going to be she's going to be, but she, her brother will be ruling. And if he does know that stuff, maybe she should have been included in it too.
Yeah, I really didn't like the scene only for the fact that I thought it was way too long and drawn out. But there were some pretty good moments in it. Like, Khal Drogo was looking completely bored and disinterested, about the wedding until the fight broke out. All those guys started dying, right? Then you kind of saw like a hint of a smirk or a smile on his face in that scene, which I thought was pretty cool. Jorah was good. He hasn't been completely friend zoned yet, but you almost got the feeling that he will be friend zoned eventually by Dany. But yeah, I think it was just a bit too long and dragged out a bit. I think what's interesting, what I've always wondered about was, has Dany ever read the songs of and histories of the Seven Kingdoms? Like the gifts that Jorah actually gave her. I mean, do you think that she actually read those books?
Probably not.
No, she did not read them. Goodness gracious. Why would you ask something like that? No.
I think she only oh, go ahead. I think she only really uses what Viserys told her about Westeros and takes that to heart over books because she's like, Viserys told me this about this people. Viserys told me this about this person. So it's like, and she even mentions in season 7 that she never had a formal education on Westeros, yet she wants to rule the country. So, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, so do you think she actually loses those books at the end, or do you think she still has those books? I mean, just a question I have. You know?
She's gonna give them. Oh, she's gonna give them to Tyrion as his wedding present when he marries Sansa. It's gonna make people so mad.
You renew his vows to Sansa.
I mean, they did when they were traveling. They did have horses. They did have a way of bringing stuff along. So those books were not. They were just like this big. It's not a lot of space, and technically you can't eat that. So when they were starving in that desert, I don't think they were cooking with the pages. Or the leather.
I mean, you would think she read those books, it would prepare her a little bit more for the invasion of Westeros. But I guess if she has Tyrion, then do you need to read those books? I mean, not that Tyrion's a great strategist or anything like that, as evidence from last season. But it's one of these lost things that you never,
It is.
There's no closure.
But so she got them from Jorah, right?
Yeah.
So technically, it's interesting that he is the guy who basically falls in love with her, and there are poems and songs, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that, so it's interesting that he gives her poems. He basically doesn't write them himself, and at that moment he's not in love with her. I don't think. I mean, just looking at her, anybody can fall in love like at first sight, but him giving her poems, and I'm sure there are love poems too in there, and that's kind of interesting. Like, he already.
I mean, it's songs and histories. So
yeah.
Anyway, I mean, he shows signs of being in the friend zone already. So
yeah.
Poor Jorah.
Johnny. No, again, because she doesn't show any anywhere in that time, at least in the show, picturing the show, it's never mentioned, or she doesn't refer to them at all. But it's an interesting choice of a gift, I would say. Okay, why would they pick? They picked eggs, and they picked whatever, snakes. Somebody gave her snakes, and somebody gave her other stuff, and he gives her books. I hope there's a meaning to that. Maybe she'll refer to it later on, like, your present or gift from you on my wedding day. Like, just tie it in a little bit, tie the loose ends, right?
It shows you the difference between Dany and Joffrey, perhaps, right? Because when Joffrey got books for his wedding, he just destroyed them. So this is I don't know. I'm sure the books have deeper meaning than that. Than just a comparison between Joffrey and Dany, but maybe it's one of those things that are just forgotten about and nobody really cares about it anymore.
Well, also, I think it's either foreshadowing for her gaining knowledge ultimately and becoming wise, or the fact that she hasn't read them and we don't think she's read them. Maybe that's foreshadowing for something else in the future. Because we did see in season 7 her do a few unwise things, so maybe she should read those books. Anybody? I feel like I'm doing this all night.
I'm trying to find the button, Johnny. I'm trying to find the button. I got it. I don't know if we're talking about her wedding night, or are we not talking about it right now? We're gonna wrap it up, right? For her stuff. So that was the thing that ticked me off, because that is not how it went down in the books. The girl loved it in the books. The girl asked for it in the books, and here, poor thing, she was crying and not happy tears. So that was bad. That was bad. The way they portrayed it, they were twisting stuff. They made it into, I guess, a rape, or however you want to call it at that moment. I mean, technically it was awful.
When I read the book,
that was a bad thing that they did.
And Khal Drogo doing his Hodor routine by saying no a bunch of times. It was like
that was awful. And that was that is one of the things I'm hating on this. I mean, it was powerful, yes. It put her really down, yes, it did, and she's gonna rise up. But in the books, people, those of you who have not read the books, she loved it. She asked for it, and
She
it was
said, yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I'm gonna be done
Yeah.
with my little rant over here.
I would.
Disappointing show.
Yeah.
On the
Yeah. She was ready. Let's just say that.
yeah, more than ready.
But she was a lot
In the
younger
book.
too, so it is weirder. And he was
But-
like 30, and I think she was 13, right? Something
But
like.
that
But
in the
still.
show, I mean, all kinds of stuff is over there. Plus, I still am not convinced if they're really 13 or 10, or how do the counting start. What are the name they do? They give the names to the child when it's born, or do they wait like 2 years to make sure the child will survive to give it a name? So I would boost it up. I'm still not convinced that 13 is 13. 13 may be whatever 16 at that moment.
Exactly. I mean, yours could be a lot longer on Planetos than they are on
Exactly.
Earth.
Exactly. So I'm not phased
That's
at
how
all
you
by
justify it. That's
Well, I'm saying, yeah. I mean, I totally agree with Elmar. I mean, ages don't mean anything. I mean, on
And-
Planetos, because we have no reference.
Yeah, and even like Bran, right? He was over there doing his thing. I know 10-year-olds. 10-year-olds don't look like that. 10-year-olds look a lot younger. At least the 10-year-olds I know and I've known. He doesn't look like he's 10 on that show. Doesn't. And the little guy, what's his name? I don't want to say the wrong name. His little brother. Yes. Different names come through my head right now, and I don't want to make a boo-boo when it comes to names here right now. He doesn't look like he is as old. Anyway, we don't see. I don't hear his name. Was it 3 in the books or whatever? 4, 3. I don't buy the whole age thing. So with this scene with Danny, big no. It was very powerful when I watched it. I got a completely different feeling while watching it. But then when I read the books, I was like, how could they? Well, I'll let it go. And I'll be quiet for now.
Yeah, I just got a comment. BBM, no one thinks you're 13 with that hairline. Go ahead, Kenzie.
No, because I was just looking over it in the books, and she starts to undo his braids or something because he has like bells and stuff. But the entire time, like they wait like a very long stretch of time. Like it's not like they arrive and then it's like stripped down to your clothes. Like what's up to it? It's like it takes them like a long time, and she's like, no, 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 and then her last sentence in her chapter is yes. So she does consent to this, and this happening. It's not like she was a victim of rape or assault like in the show. But maybe it's, I guess, to empower her more in terms of, I guess, season 7 when she tells John basically her life story, to give her more power instead of saying, yeah, I let my husband do all of this stuff to me. So anyways, we can move on if no one else has any more comments.
As usual, I'll mute and talk about random nothingness, which is the next scene. Sasa.
I stopped recording my notes. But
so the next scene after that, we had Winterfell, where Kat and Sansa, where Catelyn was brushing Sansa's hair. They're sitting in front of the fireplace, and the first thing I noticed when rewatching this, what a waste of beeswax on candles. Like, how many bees do they have over there? It's just dripping down the mantle. Like, dude, that's expensive. You have to hand dip the thing. It's very time consuming, and those candles were just like, yeah, I don't know. I don't like that
and
kind
yet
of
there are
inaccuracy.
chapped lips. Shouldn't be chapped lips with beeswax around,
There you go. Nothing apparently is abundant, and candles were expensive. I'm not hating on it. I'm just noticing, like, oh, that's a lot of candles. That's a lot of candle wax. Oh, I'm like, oh, there's a whole curtain of it. You could make like 50 of them. Dude, you're wasting so much candles. The bees must be huge in that show. Like, yeah, they have dragons and they have huge bees over there making all that stuff. So then,
go ahead. My bad. I was gonna.
That's scary.
yeah, that's okay. So Yeah, I know. Huge bees to make all this wax, and that's not the first scene that or not the last scene that they wasted so much wax and so much candles all over the place. Such a fire hazard. What got me kind of not laughing, but kind of like when Kat said, or when Sansa was questioning if Joffrey will like her, and Kat said something, if not, then he's the stupidest prince that ever lived, and yeah, we know he's stupid. Um, and then he said he's the only thing I ever wanted. um, I mean, I don't blame her. She's young and she sees this apparently, according to her, gorgeous prince. She falls in love with probably the face and the title and what that title can bring her. She's thinking she's gonna be queen, future queen. So that was huge, huge. And in that scene, this is actually a really really long scene where there is Kat and Sansa. Then we see Jon and Benjen, and then we see Jon and Tyrion having a talk about the bastard thing. We have Ned and Benjen talking about, White Walkers, dire wolves, you being hand of the king, winter's coming. That's, I think, the second time they mention it. Then we have Cat, Cersei, and Sansa, and um, um, Cersei just saying if she already bled. I'm like, what? Did you just ask that? Like, dude, what's wrong with you? And then at the end of that scene, we have Jaime and Ned. Jaime being kind of aggressive, not letting Ned through. We see that Ned is not aggressive, and Jaime is starting the conversation. So this is a huge scene. Take it away.
Sansa. You know, it's like even when she's not being abused, she's still playing the victim, and that's what I felt like when she was just begging her mother to make Daddy, say yes to be the hand of the king. It's like she was still playing the victim here. So enough said about Sansa. In terms of the feast, yeah, I mean, it was good. Again, it shows the family dynamics of the Starks, right? I mean, you had Arya just basically, you know, basically throwing food on Sansa's face, or I hate flicking food with that spoon in Sansa's face. You saw Jon being the outcast, but still in good relations at least with his uncle Benjen, and you also got a glimpse into the similarities between Jon and Tyrion, and foreshadowing their friendship. Right? I mean, they're both pretty much bastards, so. One's not technically a bastard, but dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes. So you already see the beginning of the Tyrion and Jon friendship in that scene. So yeah, I'll save the rest of the comments for the scene in the bedroom later.
Yeah, well, of course you will, Milt. That's what you're known for. I like how the Great Hall of Winterfell scene was shot, how the dinner was shot. Even the fact that Jon was outside at this point was a pretty good touch. Massive foreshadowing to Jon the Brood. But we do see that it seems like Benjen knows the secret when he's talking to Jon. Seems like he knows something. That doesn't know what he'd be giving up. And do we know if Benjen ever had some semblance of a family? Because it seems like he acts like he knows, but I don't think he did, right?
What do you mean, semblance of a family?
Like, did he have a woman? Did he ever have a lady? Did he ever court someone? Did he ever potentially father a bastard? Or, it makes me wonder either he knew what Jon's secret was or Ned's secret was, or that he had some other experience, because it's really I don't know, the way he said it, it's like he knew something.
I think there was. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mackenzie. Go ahead.
I think like when I think Mira talks about the Harrenhal or whatever. I think there is mention that Benjen is was talking to a few of the ladies, like the noble ladies. I don't remember if there was anyone specified that he talked to, because I think pretty much after we find out that Lyanna had died is when he goes to the wall. It's like I think after that, like I don't if there was, I don't know, but I can figure it out in this.
I mean, it's never been explicitly stated anywhere in the books, at least, whether or not he ever had a crush or a love, or whether or not he's been betrothed. But he went to the wall probably when Ned came back from from the Tower of Joy, right? I mean, that's a really long trip, and to be pretty much the head of the Winterfell in all those years when Ned was fighting and traveling around Westeros. I'm sure he must have developed a crush at one point, because he was a teenager, right? He's like 18 or whatever when he went to the walls. So
Yeah, it also begs. Oh, yeah, it also begs the. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
It begs the question when you think about whether there should always be a Stark at the wall, and whether something has to do with that. And when Jon left, and when there wasn't a Stark at the wall, that's when the wall did fall. Now I know in the show they kind of went crazy with bringing down the wall. They didn't go quite that route, but I think that's interesting to note that there wasn't a Stark manning the wall when it fell.
That is an awesome question. I wonder. I don't remember anybody. Well, lately I'm not watching as much as I used to watch of creators making videos about it. But that is an awesome thing. I have no idea. I have no idea if anybody in the chat knows about that. Was there ever anything mentioned about Stark? Were there always Starks at the wall? I mean,
yeah, I thought the saying was that there must always be a Stark in Winterfell. Sure
that's the saying, but they said a Stark of every generation has served, like a Stark from every generation has served.
Oh,
and
well,
served
that is awesome.
I think it's in the next, or someone mentions like the Starks have manned the walls for thousands of years. Don't know if that's in the next episode. Or Benjen mentions it when he's talking to Jon about what giving up your life is and serving. But yeah,
that is really cool. So what do we have? What else do we have in this scene?
A little dove. Might be something to talk about. I mean, I know no one wants to talk about Sansa, but then
Yeah. So go ahead with that.
Bird reference. You have the little bird.
Yeah.
Then you have the whole sand thing, which I don't see happening in the show, but it's possible in the books, especially the way Sansa remembers the encounter. And keeps misremembering it to be more romantic than it was. I think that's very interesting, but I don't know how much it refers. I don't know how much it is to the show. I think it is interesting. She's always referred to as a bird, and I can't think of the correlation. And if any of you can think of the correlation, what it really means in the end game, help me out.
Well, birds usually kept in cages, like in the golden cage. She was in the castle. She was going to be a queen, right? At some point, and being a queen, you are free, but you're not free. So you are living in a golden cage in a way. You don't have needs for anything. You never go hungry. You have everything in a way that you physically you have things provided to you, but you are not free because you are the property of whatever country you're ruling. So she is that she's willingly going into that cage. She's willingly becoming that bird, or she did become, well, almost became that. She almost became the queen, and even at the time where she wasn't, she was still like a little bird stuck in that castle. She had everything she wanted, but she was not free to just basically leave. That's the only reference I can find. And later on, who knows, maybe the end game will be where she will choose to remain that little bird, or she will just fly away, open the cage, and just be free.
Well, I guess it's not the right bird, but she also her storyline is very much intertwined with Baelish after season 4, or like during season 4, and like she even pretends to be like his bastard daughter for a while. So maybe that too as well. Like even though it's not little dove, it's little like mockingbird or whatever. But I guess bird references around her is very interesting. But I digress.
Yes, you digress. Milt the Troll is ever at it again. Let's talk about Liza's letter. And we'll let you go first, Kenzie, since you haven't got to go first yet. So let's talk about Liza's letter and the interaction between Ned and Kat.
But yeah, so in that scene, we see Ned and Catelyn lying in bed, and then Maester Lewin knocks on the door and provides the letter. It basically, we don't see what the letter says, but Catelyn basically says that Lysa and young Robin Arryn are back in Erie, and that she kind of is safe or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it says, but basically that they're back in the Erie. And Catelyn's like she hasn't been back there since her wedding. Why is she back there? And then she like throws the letter in the fire, which is very interesting. There's conspiracy theories about this scene that the two sisters were like conspiring or something. I haven't read up on all of it, but it was very interesting that she threw the letter away and didn't show it to Ned, because you would think that possibly because it contains information that's very important, and because Robin Arryn is John Arryn's son, it's like a pseudo like sort of thing. I don't know, but you can already see the kind of divide between Catelyn and Ned in this, where she's holding secrets from him and everything. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mackenzie. I'm of the camp that I think it was a Lewin slash Catelyn conspiracy to basically get Ned to basically go to King's Landing and become hand the king. Because Lewin was Catelyn's maester back at River Run before she was married. It's just weird not to have somebody burn the letter and not show it to the Lord, right? Throw it in the fire. That's what's going on. What exactly does that letter say, right? Just a bunch of words that, Kat just said, but she could be lying, probably knows. So, it seems out of place, to not show Lord such an important message. So,
and I think there was that I don't know if it was mentioned in the show, but in the books that it was in their secret handwriting or whatever, so no one would understand.
Yeah.
Like sure, two sisters having secret handwriting, that makes sense, but you would trust your husband with everything, even though he doesn't trust you with a lot of stuff. But I digress, I guess.
Yeah. But but either way, I think that this is probably like the last straw that basically forced Ned to go to King's Landing, right? Because now he needs to figure out what happened to John, because John was essentially his foster father back in the Vale. Something else is going on down at King's Landing. He needs to know what's going on. Being honor-bound Ned. Yeah, that's it.
And also with that scene, there is the mention of, we see how much she doesn't want him to go, how she just wants him to stay home, and mentions that his father and brother rode south one time for a different king. For a king, they rode south, and then the maester says that, yeah, but I was under a different king back then. So again, a little bit of in-depth, not in-depth, but like a mention of, yeah, this was not for this king, and there were other kings. So kind of a hinting of, that there's this other history and something bad happened. But again, a little bit different. And I know we kind of we keep mentioning books. I don't know if we can go into that, but the scene is also completely different, where I think in the book it's Kat who says he should go, and then he says something that he wants to say. So maybe in the show, I see her more as a loving wife and not just the whole duty and you have to go do the thing. She's actually trying to protect basically her husband, and she wants him to stay north, even though it's not her home. She feels that he's gonna be safe over there. Yeah. So that's just my additional thing on that.
yeah, like, go ahead. Are we gonna move on? I know we're getting
Mhm.
close to 2 hours, so
Yep.
we got to get close to the yeah. We
So
kind
yeah,
of
after
talked
that
about
we have the.
Danny
Go ahead.
already,
Mhm.
and then basically from there it's the final scene, right? The
Mhm.
cliffhanger, literally.
Yeah, yeah. Well, cliff thrower, and he pushed him off the thing.
The things I do for love. Yes, Eduardo's favorite character definitely is Eduardo's favorite character is definitely Jamie Lannister. I know this for a fact, but that scene was very intense. Because I saw that before I read the book, so it really blew me away. I didn't even think Bran was going to live from that. Of course, I knew he did, but it's like, how could you? Like the way it ended and the incest, and it's just that was an emotional scene that has to be. I don't know. Like I said, that's one of the best first episodes ever. I don't know how much you can say about that as far as foreshadowing or anything. It's just how good the scene was, in my opinion. Um, yeah,
That was powerful. Like I said, I did not expect them to have that secret. Um, that this is going to be the kind of stuff we're going to see. Interesting angles, by the way. And then the poor boy. I mean, he lives in a castle, and not, I don't think a castle, big place, and I'm sure things scary, and he, sounds scary and all that. So I'm sure this is not the first time he was exposed to like popping in on somebody like that, especially being a climber, climbing all over the place. I just don't buy it. But he was shocked, and um, they were completely shocked, and so much was on the line. Like at that moment, I thought, "Oh my, they're like it's gonna be exposed. It's gonna be exposed." He saw them. He's gonna tell. I had no clue because at that point, I didn't have any clue about the books, no clue that they existed. Um, and then he just goes there, and he's finding, boom, he goes, lets him fly. Scary, horrible, shocking for me. Um, but at that moment, scary part for me was like, they need to stop him from saying stuff. And then the other side was, but he needs to tell on them. Like just the two of them combining like all the thoughts. Like I'm rooting for them not to be discovered. I'm rooting for him to discover them, to have them be discovered. And then Jamie makes a choice for me apparently, and he just pushes that poor kid. And then the way it ends with Bran flying, like we can see his body falling down. Um, we don't see him hitting the ground, but the images that we have after, we don't have to see him going, boom on the ground. We can feel it ourselves. Anybody else?
Great ending. It basically, it basically locks you in to the next episode with that ending. Um, yeah, enough said. I think people were generally shocked, if you haven't read the books already, to watch that occur. Good stuff.
Kenzie and Johnny, wanting to add anything to that too? Because that was the last scene of the thing. They ended it, like you said, on a cliffhanger. Like I thought he was dead. I didn't expect him to survive it at all. I expected for the whole thing to just not even be mentioned at all. I didn't expect this to, like, I expected him to die. And then I'm like, oh darn it! Not just for the kid who died, which was awful, but I mean, I thought he's dead. But it was for the entire idea of they have the secret. Somebody has to tell somebody. Like this is too big to how and why and what. And then yeah, later on we're gonna find out that we found out that there is still the danger of everybody else finding out. Any thoughts, Kenzie, on that you wanted to add, or Johnny, you wanted to add something before we finish up the episode?
There was obviously, now that we know that Bran has now become the Three-Eyed Raven, that there was obviously a reason to why Jaime pushed Bran off the tower. It was to then give Bran this, I guess, journey that he was supposed to go on. Like, if Jaime hadn't pushed Bran off the tower, there would be some sort of like Bran story, basically, for a lot of people slash us, would basically kind of maybe turn into like an elevated Rickon story, where like they go off and do like an adventure, but it's not as invested. Like, is like going into the season, obviously it's like, is Bran going to survive? Is Bran going to do this? Is Bran going to do that? Is he going to tell XYZ person this thing? Like, there was obviously a reason to why uh, the Bran defied his mother's orders and continued to climb, especially the climb the Broken Tower. So, yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, I just think it's a great place to end. It's perfect 2 hour mark, and I just want to say, Kenzie, your next recommended video is a Bob Ross painting, and I think that is freaking hilarious. If anybody doesn't know who Bob Ross is, oh man, that's funny. Go ahead and sign off there if you want, or I just want to say thank you to everyone, and you know where to find me. I plugged myself earlier, and you see me everywhere. So, Milt, do you have any final trolling words to say, sir?
No spectacular outros tonight. Just wanted to say thank you to the panel, Elmar, Mackenzie, and yourself, Johnny, for having me on. It's the cool thing about this stream is that I think it forces you to rewatch the show and appreciate how good the show is or was in the first season, first couple of seasons, several seasons actually, and thank you for that. I think it gives me inspiration and incentive to go ahead and do it.
I will always wanted to say thank you to the chat for everybody chatting with us. I am a complete multitasker, at least I think I am. I don't know how good I am. I don't believe actually in multitasking, because we take some energy from one thing to give it to the other, so we can pretend to multitask, or at least seem like it's multitasking. That's why I sometimes fail and get stuck in the chat, which I love, and then I go back to being in the panel, which I love too. I love to be in multiple places at the same time. Again, thank you for everybody being here. You're giving us your time, your over 2 hours of your time, which is wonderful because time is irreplaceable. So thank you for that. And Kenzie, thank you for having me. Milt and Johnny, thank you for co-paneling this with me. I don't know. I keep inventing words. I don't even know if that's a word, but apparently that's my thing last couple of days in the pre-streams. Now I did it online here too, on air. Johnny, it's going to be great for next week. We're going to be doing our Westworld still Monday, so we are relentless as ever. And I see your eyes moving. Are we still on? Probably yes. Westworld. Yeah, he's hiding. Oh, I don't know. I have to think about that. But most probably, yeah. Mondays, Westworld with Johnny. Other days, I don't know. Some things we're going to do other stuff. We'll see how it goes. So you know where to find me. My other channel is kind of dead right now. I'll probably post something somewhere there eventually. Other than that, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I love chatting with everybody. Kenzie?
I wanted to say thank you to Milt, Elmar, and Johnny for deciding to come on and start this, I guess, episode club that I've called it, because this was very interesting. I thought it was a good idea to go back into the episodes and kind of analyze it from what we know now. And I want to thank the chat for coming in and giving us some of our insights. I'll have to go back and look at this because it was very interesting. I couldn't catch all of it, but it was very good. And we are doing episode 2, so if we can keep the panel as it is, or if anybody else wants to come on and join us, more than welcome. It'll be episode 2, which, if I can't remember the episode title off the top of my head, but we'll have that sometime soon, and we can figure out a date that works for everybody, as I know picking a time for streams can be quite difficult, but I digress once again. And I want to thank everybody, and we are signing off now. And see you guys for episode 2. Bye, everyone.